he's growing up, he says he wants to play hockey. What's your first reaction?
Well, actually, he's the youngest of three, and my other two children had begun taking skating lessons, because I had grown up in Boston where I skated. I played hockey as a kid. My brothers played, and so I played with them. So I grew up with the game, and I really enjoyed it. But I wanted my kids to learn to skate first before they played hockey, and then I thought if they enjoyed skating and they were interested in hockey, we could try it out. And they did. The older ones did. They played, and they liked it. And so, of course, being the youngest sibling, he saw his older sister and his older brother playing, and so he wanted to play too. So that's how it started.
And once he got into the sport a little bit better, obviously that's a lot of travel and that's a lot of cost. What kind of places were you guys driving to? Even at maybe not necessarily that old, even at the younger leagues, what kind of places were you driving to?
Well, for all three of the kids played travel hockey. So by and large, we were traveling a lot to the Detroit area, to Grand Rapids, Battle Creek, Saginaw, Flint, Jackson, Muskegon, primarily in the Lansing area when they were younger. In the Michigan area when they were younger. They were based at Lansing primarily, and then Matt started playing more regularly in Battle Creek and Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. He was more focused on teams from those communities.
Okay, and as he's obviously a graduate of Grand Ledge High School. When he's in his hockey season during high school, did that conflict with his school schedule a lot, or was he able to work around that?
Well, he never played at Grand Ledge High School. Right. So actually, at the beginning of his junior year, what would have been his junior year, he was invited to play for a team that was based in the Detroit area. And a condition of his playing on that team was he had to move to Detroit. So when he was 16, we let him move to Detroit to play down there for an organization called Little Caesars, Detroit Little Caesars. So he played down there that year and lived with a family. And then when the season was over, he came back and finished his junior year at Grand Ledge High School. And then his senior year, he was invited to play on the National Team Development Program, which is based in Ann Arbor. So once again, he moved away and did his senior year at Ann Arbor Huron High School, but he transferred all of his credits back to Grand Ledge High School. So he did graduate from Grand Ledge High School.
What was the defining moment when you saw your son and said, hey, he might actually be able to make a name for himself playing hockey?
Well, I'm not sure if I thought he was going to be able to make a name for himself, but the first time I ever thought that he had a very good sense of the game was when he was only about 9 or 10 years old, and he was playing in a spring league game in the Detroit area. And the puck came to him as he was playing defense, and he did a maneuver that in hockey is called regrouping. And what it means is your forwards are caught in the attack zone, but the puck leaves the zone, so those forwards need to clear the zone to be onside, to be able to attack again. And usually when that happens, if it comes to a defenseman, he has to buy some time. He has to maneuver with the puck, wait for his forwards to exit the zone and then re-enter the zone. And if things go really well, the defenseman can make a pass to the forward as he loops back in and re-attacks. And when Matt was 10 years old, I had never ever even talked to him about regrouping or how that would all happen. And I was watching this game, and the puck came out of the zone, and his forwards came out of the zone, and he did a perfect regroup. And I thought to myself, that's interesting, because we'd never even talked about that. But what I understood and what I started to see in him was that he saw the ice really well, and he just had a really good sense for the game, like positional play and anticipation. And so that's when I started to think, in the back of my mind, this kid might be a pretty good player at some point down the road, if he wants to continue.
All right, so you've had I'm sure you've had many proud moments of him playing hockey. Proudest moment you've been of him off the ice?
There are a number of them. One that comes to mind was the weekend that he was drafted into the National Hockey League. He was drafted 10 years ago, in 2002, up in Toronto. And when we left Toronto to come back home, we were going to drive down to the Detroit area and pick up one of his friends, and then he and Matt were going to drive up to Minnesota to go to a 3-week hockey camp in Minnesota. And Matt's friend had expected to be drafted that weekend too. He was told he was going to be drafted, but he wasn't drafted, and so he had to sit and wait in his home for all of the rounds of the draft to go by, and his name was never called. We were driving down to Detroit. We picked that boy up and we were bringing him into Grand Ledge, and Matt's cell phone rang, and it was a reporter from Channel 6 saying, I'd like to come out to your house and do an interview with you. And Matt said, no, I can't. I'm leaving right away to go up to Minnesota to go to a hockey camp. And she said, well, if you're on the road, why don't you just drive down here to Channel 6? And he said, no, I can't do that. I have to pack up and I have to talk to my mother before we go, and this, that, and the other thing. And we got home, and Matt thanked the person for calling, but said that he was sorry he couldn't do it. And we got home, packed up, and then I think they left that afternoon. They were going to drive to Green Bay, I think, and spend the night in Green Bay with some friends. But I talked to Matt later that week. I called him when he was up in Minnesota, and I said, Matt, what was going on with that interview? And he said, Dad, a really good day for me was a really bad day for Joe, and I didn't want to make it any worse. So I thought that was for a kid that was 19 years old and was just coming down off of a tremendous experience in Toronto, getting drafted in the 2nd round. He was still grounded enough to know that a good buddy of his was really, really disappointed, and he didn't want to be doing any TV interviews while his friend had to sit there and go through that whole process. So that made me think, this guy's pretty good. He's pretty sensitive to other people.